Good evening. It's your crazy old Coot here. Whew, that was close. Had to cut that last video short. They were on to me. In case you're wondering, I have an R5 2600X on the way. And that's why I was doing those benchmarks for the R5 1600, because I want to compare them clock for clock and see if there is any IPC improvement on the Ryzen 2 CPUs. Okay? And I also have a Gigabyte X470 Aorus Gaming 7 motherboard coming. And I'm going to use that to see if the X470 gives you better performance than the X370. And then, when I got that compared, I will push that sucker as high as it goes. I've seen some benches, and I'm sorry, call me crazy, but I just don't believe them, because they're saying they can't even hit all core overclock to the boost clock, which all the Ryzens can do and more, the Ryzen 1s. So if the Ryzen 2s can't hit all cores to their boost speed, something's a little fishy. I mean, with my 2400G, I was able to hit 4.1 on all cores, and that's 200 megahertz above. So, like I said, I take these early benchmarks that are leaking with a grain of salt, because they don't make sense. Either the person has engineering samples, and the drivers aren't up to date. Something is funny. Okay? So that's that. And the other thing I want to talk about is, and this kind of was brought on by a comment somebody left on one of my videos. It was, oh my God, he knows what a computer is. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, most young people don't think old people know anything about computers. And I was thinking, well, you guys don't know my background. Why the hell should you listen to what I say? What do I know? So I'm going to give you my work history first, and then my computer history. Basically, right now, I am a senior field service engineer for a company that we automate industrial valving systems. So like at a power plant, in the control room, they can push buttons and open and close different valves. And I'm talking about main steam valves and stuff like that. Or at a water plant, I'm talking about 10-foot butterfly valves opening and closing. You don't want to crank those by hand. Okay, that's what I do now. I've been doing that for 10 years. The 10 years prior to that, I was a field service engineer in the semiconductor industry, equipment for rapid thermal processing units. Okay? And before that, for 15 years, I worked at a semiconductor manufacturing site where they actually made the wafers for computer chips. I was an engineer there. I worked in photo for a while. I worked in ion implant, and I worked in thin films different times. And before that, I worked with military equipment, and it was in the military. Okay, so that's my work history. Computer-wise, I started, and this is, you're talking early 70s, I started playing with computers in high school. Okay, we had, I took my first electronics course when I was a freshman in high school, and then the high school had what would now be considered a programmable calculator, but then it was kind of like a mini computer, so the teachers could like do their grades and stuff. I played with that some, did some programs on it. I think I taught it how to do tic-tac-toe or something like that. And then in my senior year, I took another computer course, and this time we actually used IBM punch cards. We punched out our programs, sent them to the university, and they ran them on their big main computer. My first home computer that I actually owned was an Atari 800 XL. I got videos of them. It still works. Haven't played with it for a while. And then I had a Tandy HX1000. I had that for quite a couple of years. That was a nice little computer. And then I had a 386 for a little while, and I ditched that. And then I bought a 486 DX4 Ran that for a few years. That was a nice computer. That 486 DX4 could outperform about on par with, let's say, a Pentium 90. Nice computer. And then it was kind of blurry. I played around with there was one computer I built, was a super overclocked Celeron, and I'm talking about you could overclock it like 33%. It was unreal. It ran like, and that was good. And then I had a Athlon XP 2500. I actually got some benches on my benches on that one. And then I had an Intel Core 2 Duo E7200. I think that was in an HP build. And my following one was another HP build, and that was my FX 6200. And I did that because what I would do is I bought the HP, and I would rip out the power supply and the graphics card, which is usually really cheap, and I would put in a decent power supply and a good video card and run it, and it ran. They ran great. I mean, you know, it was a cheap, quick way to build a computer. And then I built the R5 1600, and like I said, I've got the R5 2600X on order. So I've been messing with computers and technology for quite some time. So let's see, over 40 years. So sometimes I just say, you know, do this, and I don't explain it. It's because it's not I'm trying to diss you or something. It's just because I've been doing it for so long, I think everybody knows. So slap me up the side of the head if you have any questions, like, why do you do it this way? So this is your crazy old Coot, wishing you a good evening.